Good morning. Been a little history lesson today. Excuse the noise, I'm making myself a cup of coffee. It'll die down in just a minute. So we are going to be reading a new chapter in our history book all about some of the buildings in Rome. We've heard about some of the innovations, how the Romans did things a lot better and in a really unique way compared to some of the other countries at the time. Can you think of some ways that they made better roads and bridges? And what were the aqueducts? They're like a pipe system to get water from one place to the other. So they had multiple ways that they really did things in an innovative way. And some of their roads and bridges and aqueducts are still around today because they were constructed so well. So you could assume the same is going to be, it'll be the same with some of the buildings that they have. So that's what we're going to see today. I'm going to present my screen so that we can read along to chapter 11 of your history reader, which is in Bright Thinker. You are always welcome to read through this again. If you've watched the video, for example, and you want to read through a section again while you're maybe answering some questions, you're welcome to do that. Now, the buildings of Rome. Now, I've got a little story here about the Roman family. It says, Nikos smiled as he lifted the heavy scroll back into its case. Linus and Lucia had spent many hours studying the map of Roman roads. Their grandfather asked some hard questions about the map. Linus and Lucia knew every answer. That night, they traveled to Rome. The smooth paved road shone in the moonlight. The senator and his guards rode close to the wagon. The clopping sounds of the horses' hooves filled the cool night air. When they reached Rome, its narrow streets were covered with wagons. Although many Romans stayed in at night, food and supplies for the morning arrived while they slept. They passed through noisy, crowded neighborhoods filled with apartment houses. The city grew quieter as they rode into the senator's neighborhood. Once they went through his house gates, the senator's gardens were as quiet as his country villa. Servants with torches ran into the yard. They unloaded the wagon and led the horses to the stables. The children followed their grandfather into the house, and Nikos followed with his case of scrolls. A little description of that life that they have, and here they are. You can see what the inside of a Roman house might be. Nikos, come and have something to eat, said the senator. The children did well with their lessons. Tomorrow I want to take Linus to the market in the Forum. We'll hear more about that soon. That boy thinks Rome is nothing but chariot races and gladiators. I want him to learn about life in our city. He will find plenty of life in the Forum. Now, gladiators, as you can see here, were people who were forced to fight other men or sometimes animals like lions and tigers in this big arena. So almost you can think of it like a boxing or wrestling. However, it was much, much more violent, and they would usually fight until the death. So they would put a man in there fighting a lion or fighting this other huge man, and until the other one kills, or until one kills the other, the fight would just continue on. And oftentimes it was servants, people who were from conquered areas that they brought in, and they were the ones who were forced to fight, sadly. So it was high entertainment. It was a really popular form of entertainment. So it makes sense that little Linus thinks, oh, it's just gladiators and chariot races. But there's a lot more to life in Rome. Now, the next morning, Lucia woke up in a strange room. For a moment, she forgot she was in her grandfather's house in Rome. Then she jumped out of bed. Last night, grandfather promised a surprise if she got up early. Lucia found him waiting near a stairway. The senator led the way up the stairs to the roof. Lucia took his hand as they climbed. When she looked up, she saw a strange light above the house. When they reached the top of the stairs, Lucia saw the source of the glowing light. The first faint light of dawn had just reached a nearby hilltop. There, a huge white building glowed in the early light. On its roof stood a huge statue of a bearded man driving a chariot pulled by 4 horses. As you can see here. And this is the Temple of Jupiter, the god who is the Roman equivalent to Zeus. Now, grand pillars of pure white marble surrounded the entire building. Now, marble is a specific type of stone that was used very often in Roman buildings, still used fairly often today. I'll present my screen over so you can see a picture of what this stone looks like. It's mainly white. There's that marble rock. I'm going to see if, well, there it is in a kitchen. Oftentimes used as counters, as a countertop, and there is the rock itself. Here it is. This is what I was more thinking, just in nature. But their pillars for the buildings were often made out of this. Okay, let's go back to our book. Lucia had never seen anything as beautiful before, and it is beautiful. There is the greatest symbol of Rome, the Temple of Jupiter, grandfather said. Today we will visit that temple, just the two of us. Linus will go with Nikos to explore the marketplace. So this character is saying that temple is the greatest part of Rome. It's the greatest symbol of Rome. Prioritizing, saying that religion, and this is a place of worship where they worshipped Jupiter, was more important than some of the government buildings or the marketplace, the forum where they just bought and sold things. Lucia looked down at the senator's gardens. The first birds began to sing. She saw Nikos and Linus leaving the house on their way to the marketplace. Nikos, are you sure we will see fish bigger than me? Asked Linus. Yes, Linus, and fish smaller than your fingers. We will see every fish in the sea and maybe even an octopus. But we must hurry. This is at the marketplace. They're going to see all these fish. Before long, Linus was staring wide-eyed at the fish being sold in the market. Hundreds of people were carrying fish, smelling fish, and poking fish with their fingers. Some fish were so large that 2 men could barely carry them. Some were so small that 100 could fit in a basket. Can you think of some fish that would be large enough that 2 people would have to carry it? Or small enough you could have 100 in just a small basket? Most of the fish went to small food stands. Few Romans had kitchens at home. Almost everyone in Rome bought meals that were cooked at food stands. So they couldn't actually cook in their own home, so they had to have things that were ready to eat that they bought. Nikos and Linus left the fish sellers and went to the meat, grain, oil, wine, and spice sellers. So instead of a big Walmart supercenter, a bunch of different people they went to, kind of like a farmer's market for those of you who've been to that. Linus saw how Rome brought food to the 1 million or so people who lived there. By the end of the day, he had learned some very important things. He was also very hungry. By the way, in some parts of the world, this still happens where you go to different sellers. I lived in Bethlehem for a little while, and there were a lot of people. There were just specific meat sellers or just a baker or just a fruit stand. And that's the way that we got all of our food, is just going to each of those places. Now, Lucia and her grandfather climbed the white marble steps of the Temple of Jupiter. A huge gold statue of the King of the Gods looked down on them as they entered. Grandfather stopped to speak to another senator. Lucia waited on the steps of the temple. She looked out over the city. Rome was so big. The people looked tiny as they walked among the great buildings. Lucia turned her eyes on the Forum of Rome. Thousands of people were talking and shouting, buying and selling, walking, running, and standing still. The Forum was like the city, filled with noise and excitement and people. So kind of like a downtown area, but much larger than downtown Bentonville, for example, because it's a much larger city. Now, Lucia and grandfather walked all through Rome that day. They visited temples and theaters. They ate at food stands and drank from the fountains. They even saw animals being led across the city. Grandfather pointed out people from every province. There were Egyptians, Greeks, red-headed people from Gaul, and dark-skinned people from Africa. Lucia was happy to be part of this noisy, crowded, exciting city. There was so much to see and to learn. Grandfather, will you take me again tomorrow, please? I want to know more of our city. I am so proud to be a Roman. All right, so that is what, and there's some of the animals dragged across the city, probably going to fight a gladiator. So quite a few things that are quite similar to what cities would be like today. Having a place to get food, There are places of worship to go specifically to see the Temple of Jupiter. There were places of entertainment and theaters. And there were people just bustling and moving about. It was an exciting place to go, the Forum. So we're going to do a little activity now. I want you to write a little paragraph about how the city of Rome, and specifically this Forum, which is like the downtown area, how it is similar to cities that you might go to today. What are some things that you heard from that chapter that are actually quite similar to what you might see in a city now? I'll give you a first sentence, and I'd like you to write a paragraph based off of this. And there are a number of things that you could include, but some of the things that you could write about are the place of worship. There's the Temple of Jupiter there. Today, we'd have churches and other places of worship. There were also these markets, which still have some markets today, but mainly we go to places that have lots of food at the same place. And then you've got places of entertainment. They went to see the gladiators fight each other. Today, we might go to a park or to a movie theater or something like that. That's more of a place of entertainment. And there was also a downtown area where people walk about. So write about a few of those things, just writing a few sentences total. And I'd like you to write this first sentence. And I'm going to actually present my screen to show you a little example of what your paragraph could look like. But don't write in with these exact sentences. You can use the ideas, certainly, though. So ancient Rome was similar to modern cities. Okay, write that exact sentence as your first sentence if you'd like to. If you want to make a little bit of changes, you're welcome to. Notice that this paragraph is indented. We indent at the beginning of the paragraph. Some things you could say is that Rome was a noisy and crowded place with lots of people and large buildings. There were traffic jams and there was crime even. There were apartment buildings. We learned that from a couple chapters ago, that they, especially the plebeians, lived in kind of crowded apartments. Theaters and other forms of entertainment. There were places for people to buy things and places of worship. People living in Rome came from many different places and spoke different languages. There are many similarities between the city of ancient Rome and modern cities. And you can use this exact ending sentence if you would like as well. Okay, pause this if you would like to keep it up for a little bit longer to read it. In Bright Thinker, I'll post the first sentence of your paragraph to get you started on that. But write some thoughts of your own, how Rome might be similar. And you can certainly, if you'd like, include a couple of things that seem really different from modern cities today as well. That can be part of the paragraph. Okay, I'll have you upload a picture of that to Bright Thinker when you're done, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.